Revealed, the inspiring story behind a billionaire's homecoming and a maid's incredible warning. Jason Carter stepped out of his sleek black SUV into the overgrown yard of the Carter Ranch, a stark contrast to the manicured estates he had built his empire upon. The air was thick with nostalgia, a haunting aroma that reminded him of fresh hay and sun-drenched afternoons. Yet this place, once vibrant with laughter, stood dilapidated, with vines creeping across rotting wood, a painful reminder of a past he had long buried beneath the weight of his success. As he approached the crumbling porch, his heart raced with a mixture of excitement and dread, memories flooding back like flashes of an old film. He pushed the door open, its creak echoing through the hollow spaces of the rooms he had once filled with dreams. At that moment, everything felt out of sync, every artifact from his childhood reminding him of the man he used to be. "Welcome home, Jason," came the familiar voice of Maria, the loyal maid, her smile a bittersweet balm against the memories swirling in his mind. Did she know the weight pressing on his chest? Did she feel the dissonance growing between them like an insurmountable chasm? As they exchanged pleasantries, Maria's eyes shimmered with warmth, yet there was something deeper, something unspoken that intensified Jason's unease. He had come back to Willow Creek to reconnect with the roots he had severed years ago, but the town bore the scars of economic divides, a widening gap that troubled him. Was his return a gesture of goodwill, or merely a self-serving act? As he grappled with these questions, a far more unsettling truth emerged from their conversation. "Jason, there's something you need to know," Maria said, her tone shifting. "The wealth your family amassed wasn't built on clean hands." Her words echoed painfully, jolting him from reverie. Each syllable carried the weight of generations lost to corporate greed, tales of exploitation hidden behind the glossy facade of success he had so meticulously adorned. Did the laughter of childhood friends mask pain? Did their smiles cloak suffering? With each revelation, Jason felt as if he were fraying at the seams, a tapestry unraveling under the stress of harsh light. The very empire he had toiled to build stood atop a foundation drenched in injustice. Could he embrace it, celebrate it, when the origins were steeped in darkness? Before they could delve deeper, an intense storm rolled in, drenching the town, isolating it from the world beyond. Rain battered the windows, thunder shaking the foundations of not just the house but of Jason's very identity. He felt trapped, caught between the pressures from shareholders who demanded profits and the rising tide of ethical responsibility threatening to drown him. His phone buzzed relentlessly, but in this moment of chaos, he felt an undeniable pull toward Maria, who stood by resolutely. He needed her wisdom as the last remnants of summer were washed away. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jason's thoughts raced with every gust of wind, echoing Maria's revelations, and the urgency of the storm mirrored his own turmoil. Could he stand tall against looming threats, the whispering voices from his past calling for loyalty to the empire he created? Each night stretched on, conversations with Maria illuminating painful truths, while leaving him drowning in moral confusion. What good was wealth if it was built on suffering? Just as resolve began to form in his heart, his phone buzzed with an ominous message demanding he maintain the status quo. The flickering candlelight reflected the storm's chaos, stirring the depths of Jason's helplessness. At this crossroads, he felt the history of his family clawing back, and the pressing question loomed large in his mind. Would he have the courage to confront it? As the storm raged on, a single thought pierced through the turmoil. To find redemption, he might have to sacrifice everything he believed in. Thunder rumbled like a distant war drum, shaking Jason from his spiraling thoughts. He needed to act, yet the weight of his family's legacy bore down on him like the pounding rain. The very foundation of everything he had built felt shaky, constructed from secrets and compromised values. He turned to Maria, the steady anchor in the tempest of emotions swirling around him. "Maria, what should I do?" His voice trembled with the sincerity of his desperation. She placed a hand gently on his forearm, a gesture infused with understanding. "You must confront this, Jason. It isn't just about the past. It's about how you choose to shape the future." Her words flickered inside him like the candlelight, igniting a flicker of resolve that had long been dormant. What if they won't listen? What if my shareholders reject any notion of change? I've worked my entire life for this empire. What good is it if I throw it all away? Torn between the ambition that had driven him for years and the guilt that now weighed heavily on his conscience, every option felt suffocating. Maybe it's not about throwing it away. It could be about transforming it into something authentic, something that uplifts rather than oppresses, she replied, an unusual fire igniting in her eyes. Trust me. People respect a leader who has the courage to acknowledge their imperfections. As the storm intensified, Jason felt time slipping through his fingers. He had come to Willow Creek seeking clarity, yet found only darkened paths illuminated by harsh truths. He could no longer remain a pawn, too focused on the boardroom, overlooking the lives affected by their decisions. With a surge of determination, Jason grabbed his phone, scrolling through the barrage of messages from his team. Each ping was a reminder of the expectations, the well-worn patterns pressing him against an already crumbling wall. The notifications screamed for compliance, but something deep was shifting within him. The tinges of defiance began to take root. "I need to think," he said abruptly, stepping away from Maria. The tension was palpable as he sank into an old armchair, its fabric worn from years of neglect. He closed his eyes, the storm's melody merging with his racing thoughts, forcing clarity through chaos. Jason envisioned his father's steadfast grip on power, a stark contrast against Maria's radiant honesty. The images swirled, pushing him to confront what he truly desired, what legacy he wanted to create. 2 childhood memories surfaced, weaving through the storm, the laughter shared with friends, and a moment where he had watched helplessly as an acquaintance lost their family business to unfair competition. Those memories etched into his psyche, provoking both empathy and resentment. How could he stand by, merrily enjoying success while others suffered from the consequences? Drawn back to his decision, Jason opened his eyes. Clarity pierced his mind like a spotlight. He had everything to gain by being vulnerable. The truth was a boundless source of power. In that moment, he made a vow. He would lead with integrity, redefine success, not by profits alone, but by the lives he could change. "Maria," he called, urgency in his voice. "I'm ready to talk. Not just with you, but with everyone who's been affected by what I've built. I want to know their stories." Maria's eyes glinted with pride, a glimmer of hope reflected in her gaze. That's the first step to making a difference. Before the storm finally let up, Jason felt as though he had stepped into a new frame of mind, ready to confront both his family's past and his own future. As the first winds of change stirred around him, he knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But with a burgeoning purpose, he was more prepared than ever to face the storm. Just then, his phone buzzed again. A new message from the board. "We need to discuss your plans for the next quarter." A chill crept through him, and he realized what awaited him at the board meeting was a reckoning. Could he stand strong in the face of opposition? Was he ready to confront the very empire he had built, armed with truths that threatened to knock him down? As he braced himself, the real challenge awaited on the horizon, demanding both courage and clarity. Would he rise to the occasion, or would those who dictated his corporate world wash away his newfound convictions? The next morning, Jason took a deep breath as he stood before the imposing glass doors of his office building. The world outside seemed brighter, clearer, as if the storm had washed away the fog clouding his judgment. Yet, beneath that veneer of clarity lay an undercurrent of anxiety. Today was not just any ordinary day. It was the day he would confront the very foundation of his corporate life, the beliefs that dictated his actions and the legacy of his family. As he stepped inside, the muted sounds of the bustling office met him, a cacophony of ringing phones and hurried footsteps. He moved through the crowd with purpose, his mind swirling with strategy and resolve. In 1 hour, he would be presenting his vision to the board, and he prayed it was as inspiring as he imagined it could be. In the conference room, the atmosphere was stiff and unwelcoming, a stark reminder of the hard-nosed world he had endeavored to navigate. The board members, a stoic assembly of suits, were already seated and engrossed in their tablets, the air thick with tension. To Jason's left, a prominent member, Gerald, raised an eyebrow disapprovingly, the embodiment of tradition and staunch resistance to change. Jason could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down. "Let's begin," Gerald announced, leaning back with a casual demeanor that masked a critical spirit. "We are all eager to hear your plans for the next quarter." "Thank you, everyone," Jason replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Today, I want to redefine not only our objectives, but also how we perceive success." As he launched into the presentation, outlining his ideas for transparency and social responsibility, a flicker of fear sparked within him. He knew that what might be seen as visionary to some could easily be dismissed as naive by others. The glances exchanged among the board members confirmed his fears, a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Are you suggesting we sacrifice profits for people?" Delia, another board member, interjected sharply, her skepticism evident. "You must understand, Jason. We have shareholders to consider. Your proposals could jeopardize our standing in the market." The room seemed to shrink as Jason struggled to quell the rising tide of doubt. His heart raced, and the basis of his vulnerability collided with the fear of rejection. Memories of laughter, competition, and losses budded in his thoughts, compelling him to respond with authenticity. "I believe a company should not only serve its owners, but also its community. By sharing our resources and creating opportunities for those who have been marginalized, we can cultivate loyalty and trust. It's about creating a sustainable legacy," he countered, his voice gaining confidence with every word. However, Gerald's cold response cut sharply through the growing momentum. "Idealism won't pay the bills, Jason," he stated. "Your father built this empire on pragmatism. Don't forget that." His words cut deep. Jason felt the pull of his family's shadow, but this was not a time for retreat. He stood tall against the onslaught, feeling the surge of Maria's support echo within him. "You're right. My father valued results, but what I'm proposing isn't a departure. It's an evolution, an embrace of our human side as a competitive advantage. I challenge you to reconsider what it means to win." The board didn't react immediately, their stoic facades intact. Jason's heart raced with the realization of what he had just done. He had confronted not just the board, but the very legacy that had both enabled and imprisoned him. As whispers of doubt rippled through the room, something shifted. He could see flickers of contemplation in some of their eyes. Was it possible that the ambition for money and power could coexist with genuine interest in fostering real connections? Just then, his phone vibrated silently in his pocket. An incoming message from Maria. "You're doing great. Just remember, true leadership isn't about controlling the ship, but guiding it through the storm." Her words resonated within him, igniting a flame of defiance. He took a deep breath, ready to wrap up. "I know my ideas may feel risky, but real leadership often looks like taking these risks for a greater purpose. Together, we can redefine success, not just for ourselves, but for all those we touch." With that, he felt the pendulum shift. What would the board's decision be? Would they dismiss him, Or would they consider embracing something entirely new? As he concluded his presentation, he understood that today's challenge was only a step in his journey. He stepped away from the podium, anxiously awaiting a verdict. Deep within him, a voice whispered, urging him to brace for either acceptance or denial. Today could mark the beginning of a legacy aligned with his values. Or it could shatter his vision before it began. Would the board recognize the potential buried beneath the waves of tradition, or would they drown out his dreams? The next moments held the answer, and with it, Jason's future. The silence in the room stretched, taut as a wire, drawing every gaze toward the board members seated around the polished table. Jason's mind raced ahead of him, anticipating the deliberation, while his heart hammered against his chest, echoing the uncertainty of a future he longed to reshape. Gerald cleared his throat, leaning forward, his expression unreadable. "Jason, your passion is evident, and it takes courage to stand before us and present such progressive ideas." The pause hung like a heavy fog. Jason could almost see the twists and turns of Gerald's internal debate. However, with every great vision, we must weigh the consequences. He could feel the eyes of the board members narrow slightly, the doubt in their expressions crystallizing. The collective fear of change hung in the air, a dense cloud of skepticism. "Change is always uncomfortable, but avoiding the conversation isn't a solution," Jason interjected. "What I propose is a chance to elevate our brand beyond mere numbers. By investing in our community, we're securing a brighter future, not just for them, but for us as well." This time, Delia leaned in, her tone sharper than before. "Your father built this company on the premise of growth through discipline. Are you suggesting a complete paradigm shift?" "Not complete, just an essential evolution," he insisted, gaining strength from his own conviction. Deep down, he grappled with the fear of inadequacy that often shadowed him, molded by his family's legacy. Questions echoed in his thoughts. Who was he without this relentless drive for profit? What would happen if he didn't align perfectly with expectations? As the board continued to question him, Jason began to understand that this wasn't merely about a business proposal, it was also a personal crucible. The way he reacted now could forge a new identity, one not shaded by his family's past or expectations. Clarity began to seep into his fog of anxiety, offering a perspective that leaned toward empowerment rather than retreat. The conversation twisted and turned, filled with objections, statistics, and the pervasive reminder of financial stakes pressing at every corner. But inside Jason, awareness began simmering. Each critique became not a wall but a stepping stone, a chance to refine his proposals, to demonstrate that social responsibility wasn't a detraction, but a crucial tenet of modern business. Minutes stretched into what felt like eternity, and at the edge of his consciousness, Jason realized he was not just selling an idea, he was challenging a legacy. His father's model of success didn't need to be eradicated. Instead, it could be harmonized with a new vision that recognized the human story behind every transaction. As deliberations paused momentarily, Jason took a deep breath, leveraging that window of stillness to center himself. He could feel Maria's support echo in his mind, memories of her encouragement rushing to the forefront. "Every storm reveals unseen strength," he whispered to himself, embracing the truth within. He stepped forward again, feeling lighter, as if shedding the weight he had dragged through the meeting. "I understand the concerns, but what if we could be the emblem of change in our industry? Our shareholders deserve more than just their return on investment. They deserve to invest in something that lasts. Let's set a precedent." The meeting didn't conclude with an immediate response. Instead, fading into tense murmurs and glances exchanged among the board members. Jason felt one flicker of hope, a small break in their tough exteriors, an inkling that perhaps he had struck a chord. But beneath that flicker lingered the deeper fear of what would come next. Was he ready to embrace the unknown? The true test awaited beyond the boardroom, where rejection or acceptance could redefine everything he got to know about himself. As Jason left, the weight of uncertainty loomed once more. Would this singular moment shift the trajectory of his life? Or would he find himself critiqued, dismissed, or worse, pushed back into the shadows of his family's expectations? He stepped out into the light, determined to face whatever came next, knowing it was all part of a greater transformation. Just then, a message pinged on his phone, interrupting his thoughts. It was from Maria, loaded with anticipation and a gentle nudge forward. "Opportunity knocks but once, Jason. Are you ready to answer?" The question hung heavy as he stepped back into the world outside, a world that perhaps would soon need to understand him beyond the legacy he inherited. What awaited him on this journey towards self-discovery and leadership was unknown. But one thing grew clearer. Adaptation could very well be his greatest strength, and this was only the beginning. The soft glow of the office lights flickered dimly as Jason stepped out into the bustling New York streets. The world felt different somehow, charged with energy he hadn't noticed before. Each honking car, bustling pedestrian, and coffee shop chatter seemed to pulse with a rhythm that matched the newfound determination he felt swelling inside him. The board meeting was pivotal, yet he was acutely aware of the looming ambiguity ahead. His phone buzzed again, this time another message from Maria, who had seemingly become a lifeline in this tumultuous journey. "This is your moment, Jason. Remember why you started." Each word catapulted him back to late-night discussions filled with dreams and hopes shared over cups of coffee. Dreams he had silenced while trying to align himself with external expectations. He found a nearby park and settled onto a cold metal bench, the terrain beneath him symbolizing the steadiness he sought in this chaotic moment. He remembered vividly how his father would often dismiss talk of social responsibility as a distraction. It was this narrative that Jason had carried for so long, a weight that was beginning to feel unbearable. But now, pieces of a new narrative fluttered in the air, ready to be grasped. He pulled out his notebook, pages filled with hastily scribbled notes and half-formed ideas. The thought of crafting an actionable plan filled him with adrenaline. How could he rediscover the core of what could be both profitable and responsible, creating value not just in financial terms but in the impact they might make? As he jotted down thoughts, he realized that framing these sentiments was not merely an exercise in business planning. It was also crucial to understanding himself. This was about reframing success in a way that resonated beyond cold metrics. Suddenly, an idea sparked. A community initiative that could embody his vision, embody the very change he wanted to demonstrate. But with the enthusiasm came doubt. Who was Jason without the safety net of his father's legacy? The question loomed larger, a specter that threatened to drag him back into familiar shadows. Did he have the capacity to be a leader who inspired rather than dictated? In the park, he noticed a group of children playing, their laughter infectious. It struck him then. If he was to shift the narrative, he needed to connect with not just the boardroom's elite, but also those who would directly benefit from any shifts in perspective. Maybe listening was the first step towards change. A collective dialogue could unravel layers of misunderstandings that dance between profit and purpose. His thoughts grew meticulous as he planned out a structure inviting input from both the employees and community leaders, a way to integrate grassroots suggestions into his proposal for the board. If he could advocate for real voices, perhaps he could bridge the expectations of both worlds and redefine what it meant to lead the company. This direction offered a chance not just for a business evolution, but a personal one as well. He closed his notebook, feeling the weight of both possibility and apprehension. This was no longer just about overcoming the board's resistance. It was about handling internal opposition, the one that whispered from his own mind, bringing forth insecurities that he would have to address head-on. As Jason stood to leave, a gust of wind sent a flurry of leaves swirling around him, almost as if nature itself was urging him forward. The path was becoming clearer, but at the same time, he recognized that the upcoming discussions would be fraught with tension. He checked his phone one last time and saw a call from Gerald. Deciding to answer, he took a deep breath and positioned himself mentally for whatever awaited him. There was no more looking back. He would need to confront not only the board's skepticism, but his own pervasive fears. What's going on? Gerald's words broke through the anxiety clouding Jason's mind. In that moment, a familiar intensity surged within him. This was his opportunity to stand tall. I appreciate you reaching out, Gerald. I've been thinking about our last meeting, and I want to bring some fresh ideas to the table that focus on collaboration and community impact. As the conversation unfolded, Jason's heart raced, balancing hope and fear. Would this be a fleeting moment of courage, or the first step toward a profound personal transformation? The phone call with Gerald unraveled a lot more than Jason had anticipated. What began as a simple exchange morphed quickly into a dialogue brimming with possibilities. Gerald sounded intrigued, a spark of curiosity igniting in his voice. That's ambitious, Jason. How do you envision tying these ideas into the upcoming board meeting? They might want something more stable. Stability. That word reverberated through Jason's mind. He had long avoided that very notion, trapped in a cycle of fear engineered by the legacy left behind. It's about merging innovation with stability, he pushed back, the words finding a rhythm that rejuvenated his spirit. If we can integrate community feedback into our proposals, we can create a blueprint that not only meets financial targets, but enriches the lives it touches. A pause hung in the air, thick with tension and intrigue, as Gerald processed the implications of Jason's words. Jason felt a flicker of urgency. He had to maintain this momentum. I want to bring everyone, both employees and community leaders, together before the meeting. We need to have these conversations now, not just when the markers of success are drawn on paper. The line crackled as Gerald's consideration mixed with skepticism. You know there might be resistance from the upper management. They might see this as a distraction. Are you ready to face that pushback? The specter of dissent loomed large in Jason's mind. Yet, for the first time, he felt a heartening resolve. Yes, he replied firmly, the weight of his conviction knitting together his anxieties into a tapestry of purpose. This can't be just about shifting numbers. It needs to extend to how we handle our responsibilities as a corporation. It's more than an initiative. It's a belief system. Gerald finally broke through, curiosity overriding caution. Where do we start then? As the two men brainstormed, Jason's thoughts shifted toward the logistics. A podcast episode he'd recently heard about grassroots advocacy nudged at his brain, raising caution lights on how easily plans could fall apart without actionable steps. He suggested a preliminary focus group, an intimate gathering that could help refine his proposal. We'll gain insights directly from those who matter. It's not just data to support decisions, it's tangible human testimony, he explained, feeling a surge of anticipation. All right, Gerald agreed, but Jason could hear the skepticism still lining his voice. The conversation was just the beginning. The real test would come in making this vision reach fruition. The doubt invited a flutter of anxiety, but he knew he couldn't back down. As they finalized the plan, a new realization dawned upon him. The ambition he felt wasn't just professional, it was personal. Every decision he made from that moment forward would reflect the values he wanted to uphold. He wasn't simply looking to lead a project. He was forging a new identity for himself that sat uncomfortably yet excitingly separate from his father. After hanging up, Jason sat for a moment in a cafe, feeling overwhelmed yet invigorated. Listlessly stirring his coffee, he began to sketch out a rough structure for the focus group in his notebook. Questions, discussion points, and an outline of his ideas. But with each word he wrote, a new kind of fear lurked beneath his resolve. What if those he aimed to engage didn't share his vision? What if they questioned his motives, or worse, underestimated his capability based solely on his lineage? The prospect of failure clawed at him, even as excitement enveloped him like a warm embrace. As he contemplated the daunting task ahead, a realization struck him like lightning. He was no longer searching for approval. He was on the path to making his mark. Yet this was merely the prelude to something larger. The upcoming gathering felt like standing on the edge of the abyss, a leap of faith that required not just courage, but an unwavering belief in the worthiness of his mission. With the click of his pen, Jason captured a final thought in his notebook before departing the cafe. He didn't want the fear to consume him. Rather, he sought to use it, to fuel his advocacy and leadership. It was time to confront the collective skepticism, both external and the nagging self-doubt that whispered in the quiet moments. He stepped back into the rhythm of the city, feeling the pulse of potential all around him. The pressing question echoed. Could he transform this vision into reality, connecting both the community and the board in a way that shifted their perceptions of leadership? As he walked down the street, a sudden wind caught his collar, delivering a chill that ignited renewed vigor within him. The moment of confrontation with his doubts loomed ever closer. The voices he aimed to gather would either embrace this change or resist it. He was ready to find out which path he would travel. Would the articulate voice of his vision transcend the doubts rooted in both his lineage and the boardroom's staunch traditions? The upcoming meeting with the focus group would answer that question, and the stakes were higher than ever. Jason marched forward, knowing all too well that the next act of his journey was set to unfold with enormous implications for both himself and the company he aimed to steer toward innovation. The sun dipped lower in the sky as Jason prepared for the focus group, its fading light casting long shadows that mirrored his internal tension. He tucked his notes into a folder, each page filled with strategic questions and potential discussion points, yet uncertainty gnawed at him. What if they didn't understand his vision? What if they held an unspoken allegiance to the traditional methods that had governed their operations for years? He arrived early at the small conference room, the sterile environment devoid of anything that sparked creativity. The ironic contrast between the space and his ambitious plans felt suffocating. It was supposed to be a place of collaboration, but he feared it could become a battleground for old versus new ideologies. As the clock inched closer to the meeting time, Jason paced the room. Each step felt heavier than the last, an anchor weighting him down within the confines of his inherited position. He now bore the pressure of representing not just himself, but a consortium of voices, those who felt marginalized by corporate dynamics, those whose experiences he sought to amplify. The magnitude of this responsibility sent a cold shiver down his spine. Before he could spiral into doubt, the first participants began to arrive. Each face held a mix of expectation and reticence, mirroring his own anxiety. He recognized Claire, the community leader known for her no-nonsense approach. Her presence alone ignited admiration laced with apprehension within him. He recalled her pointed articles criticizing the board's lack of engagement with the community. Would she see through the smoke and mirrors of his intentions? "Jason!" she greeted, her voice vibrant yet cautious. "So, what do you have in mind?" His heart quickened at the question, a probe as critical as any board meeting. He opened his mouth, words tumbling forth, fueled by enthusiasm, but restrained by the need for clarity. "I want this session to be a dialogue, an opportunity to align our corporate strategies with real community needs. I believe we can innovate without losing our ethical core." Claire studied his expression before nodding. The room began to fill with others, rolling in like waves of varying perspectives. Each discussion sparked a new layer of insight, yet a whisper of fear shadowed every conversational turn. They could challenge him. They could dismiss him. The discussions grew, ebbing between animated agreement and fiery skepticism. Jason facilitated with growing confidence, encouraging voices to emerge from the scattered group of attendees. Some resonated with his vision while others seemed steeped in doubt, especially from some upper management associates he hadn't anticipated attending. Their presence added layers of complexity, veils shifting eagerly in a hovering storm. In a moment of clarity, Jason realized the dichotomy of this forum. He was right there, on the front lines of his transformation. Convincing these individuals meant confronting not just their skepticism, but also embracing the harsh realities of leading with genuine purpose. This was more than a meeting. It was his proving ground. Mid-discussion, his phone buzzed in his pocket. As he excused himself to check it, a message from Gerald blinked into view. The board had taken an interest in his proposals. His stomach twisted with the implications. Pressure erupted in his mind, the yearning for validation battling the desire to break free from expectations squeezed by his lineage. His identity felt in flux, caught between the person he had been molded to be and the leader he strived to become. Re-entering the room, he shook off the distraction, forcing himself to focus. "Let's talk about the long-term impact we can create together," he urged, redirecting the group back to their initial insights. A palpable shift occurred in the room. Collective energies buzzed against walls once fortified by dissent. As the meeting advanced, Jason unearthed hidden competencies within himself, adaptability, resilience, and an intuitive grasp of group dynamics that seemed to blossom before him. Every affirmation from the group reinforced the evolving narrative of his leadership journey. But shadows of doubt still lingered in the corners, small but resistant. When the final comments were shared, anticipation and reluctance intertwined, hope now interlaced with uncertainties about the upcoming board meeting. Would the voices from today carry enough weight to transform the corporate mindset? Could the insights gained from this gathering sway the perceptions of those ensconced in the rigid structures of the company? Stepping away from the round table, Jason felt the exhilaration of possibility meld with the gripping reminder of the obstacles ahead. He held the power now, no longer hiding beneath a legacy, but awakening to the responsibility of distilling change, one conversation at a time. With the night sky beginning to cloak the city, the looming question echoed in his mind. Would he have the courage to not only present, but fight for this vision at the board meeting? Would he confront the deeply seated norms and emerge transformed, proving to himself and the world that he was more than just his father's son? The stage was set, and the moment was rapidly approaching, unfolding a myriad of possibilities in the journey yet to come. Jason stood at the precipice of his career, the board meeting looming before him like an unyielding fortress. The adrenaline from the focus group still buzzed through his veins, but self-doubt gnawed at him like a persistent specter. He dug his fingers into the wood of the desk in front of him, grounding himself. The notes from the session lay spread across the surface, a mosaic of insights, concerns, and aspirations that now held the weight of his future. As he revisited the comments, Jason caught sight of Claire's encouraging gesture during the discussions, her words echoing in his mind. "Don't let them silence you." Those words felt like an electric current, energizing the flicker of determination within him, yet the fear of being brushed aside by the board clouded his resolve. Each member held their own biases, steeped in tradition and power dynamics, all of which would be directly opposed to his emergent vision. His pulse quickened as he imagined the boardroom, a sterile space where ambition clashed with legacy. The looming figures, seasoned by years of corporate negotiation, were not just colleagues. They were gatekeepers of an ideology that Jason aimed to disrupt. Would they see his passion as just youthful naivete, a fleeting whim driven by idealism? He would have to move beyond mere presentation. He needed to persuade, to ignite that same fire he'd felt in the focus group. His thoughts spiraled into a shifting montage of potential interactions, their skeptical looks, strategic interruptions, or dismissive gestures. Could he turn their challenges into opportunities? Would his experience with the focus group translate into that same confidence, guiding him to weave their insights into his defense? Unconsciously, he flipped through his notes until he landed on the insights about collaboration. "Empathy," he whispered, suddenly recalling his grandmother's advice. "You need to understand their fears and then show them why your vision isn't a threat." He straightened up, allowing the full gravity of that idea to settle. If he approached the board with empathy, valuing their position, perhaps he could unveil the mutual benefits of his proposals. As the hours dwindled, Jason walked through the office halls, replaying conversations in his mind while integrating the revelations from yesterday into his strategy. What would his father say? The answer rang clear. "Lead with conviction, Jace, but listen with intention." Shaking off the impending doubts, he rehearsed his arguments, tailoring them to both the board's prioritized goals and the community's needs. Entering the boardroom, Jason fought to keep the tremor out of his hands. The faces seated around the elongated table held a spectrum of guarded expressions. He cleared his throat, a necessary prelude to the potential upheaval of his life's trajectory. The moment he began speaking, thoughts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind, blending excitement with a compelling sense of impending confrontation. Thank you all for gathering today. I appreciate your time, and I am here to share a vision that bridges our traditional values with the innovative practices needed to engage our evolving marketplace. Each word dripped with weight, and he saw the board stiffen, wary yet intrigued. As he continued, Jason became acutely aware of how his heart raced, but it was no longer suffocating. It was alive. He felt the curiosity that had surfaced in the focus group begin to seep into the board members, igniting a dialogue he had long hoped for. They had questions, of course, objections intertwined with their skepticism. He anticipated their challenges and welcomed them not as threats, but as opportunities to delve deeper into his vision. However, despite the growing momentum, doubt flickered in the back of his mind. He was standing up against a wall of years of established norms. Would his words resonate as a call to change or be dismissed as idealistic ramblings? But somewhere within that struggle, Jason had unearthed a realization. This wasn't merely a presentation. This was his battle for validation, a chance to break free from the legacy tied to his name. As he concluded, the tension was palpable, each board member's response hanging heavily in the air. "Let's take this discussion further," their chairman finally declared. Close, but not a resolution. As Jason sat back, his mind raced with possibilities, and deep within, a stirring of newfound courage surged. With the door now open, could he handle what lay beyond? Would he rise to the occasion, or would the board find it easier to stick to the familiar? The answers risked rewriting everything he stood for, and a new, daunting question settled in. Was he truly prepared to fight not just for his vision, but also against the very fabric of his past? Jason leaned against the polished conference table, the murmurs of the board members fading into a distant hum. Focused on their words, he dissected the layers of feedback, both positive and skeptical. It was a chance to refine his approach, to harness their concerns and reshape his vision into something universally beneficial. For the first time, he felt the trepidation morphing into exhilaration. Each challenge became a catalyst for deeper thought, rather than a barrier. The chairman's declaration to prolong the discussion hung in the air, a lifeline he could grab onto. Yet as he sat in that momentary silence, he pondered what it truly meant for his proposal to be taken further. This was no longer about mere innovation. It was a test of his resolve, a litmus of his ambition. He saw the opportunities lie within their skepticism, a reflection of their fear and attachment to the status quo. It became clear. He needed to navigate through their doubts with not just arguments, but the narrative of transformation. "Skepticism is a natural response," he began, breaking the tangible tension. "I understand that any shift can disturb the foundation we've built. Yet every great advancement has come with risk. Look at how we inform ourselves today. It's through asking questions and embracing discomfort." The board's expressions flickered but did not change. Resilience surged within Jason, fueled by the weight of their history juxtaposed with the potential of his ideas. He sensed that pulling back might be easy. Instead, he chose to lean in, a conscious decision to challenge the very legacy that loomed over him. "Let's talk about collaboration," he continued, redirecting the conversation toward a tangible action plan. "By creating avenues for our clients to engage with us intimately, we can pivot profitably while reinforcing our brand's storytelling legacy." He could see the faint intrigue blossom in a few eyes, small threads of belief igniting amidst the skepticism. Questions flooded the room again, yet they were different this time, more probing, genuine, likely tied to personal stake and experience. Each inquiry felt familiar, becoming a conversation rather than an interrogation. Jason deftly navigated the challenges, recognizing that underlying the scrutiny were aspirations for success that mirrored his own. The hour wore on, his adrenaline now a steady current, allowing him to think critically and adapt to the flow of the conversation. As he positioned his ideas with precision, he aimed to deconstruct their assumptions while providing an enticing blueprint of possibility. With each rebuttal and counterpoint, Jason learned more about the intricacies of the board's motivations. In that room, he was no longer the anxious underdog, but a catalyst weaving possibilities into a canvas of dreams. After what felt like a small eternity, the chairman raised a fist, signaling a brief pause. "We have to digest this," he stated, looking across the table as if weighing contributions and concerns left unexpressed. "You've opened doors, Jason. I see potential here, but you understand the stakes." The stakes. Jason felt the weight of those words sink into his very core. It wasn't just about shifting paradigms. It was a challenge to the established hierarchy. He could either become someone who comfortably fit into their expectations, or someone who dared to leave an indelible mark on the institution itself. "We should consider a pilot program," he suggested, embedding the seed of innovation within a safety net of familiar execution. "Let's experiment where failure is an option. By testing new strategies in measured doses, we can assess their viability without risking our core operations." The board exchanged glances, murmurs of approval softening the previous dismissal. Jason sensed a shift, a crawl from their entrenched positions towards something that held promise. Yet even as he forged this hopeful path, an unsettling thought pierced his reflection. Would this pilot aligned with their values come at a price he wasn't prepared to pay? He could sense his vision could potentially lead him into battles beyond the boardroom, through personal sacrifices that might emerge as truths about his past. With that thought lingering in his mind, the lights above flashed an unwelcome reminder of the clock. Time was the only currency he hadn't evaluated yet. There was still a chance to alter the outcome, but at what cost to his identity? Was he willing to pay the price to become a leader, or would he revert to the shadows of his predecessors? A wave of anticipation washed over him, adrenaline mixing with uncertainty. The next phase had unfurled, and the real question remained. How far was Jason willing to go to realize his vision of change before facing the repercussions of his actions? The board meeting had not gone as Jason had anticipated. While some of the members had expressed interest in the pilot program idea, the majority remained skeptical, tethered to the security of traditional methodologies that had underpinned the Carter legacy for decades. As he walked away from the boardroom, frustration gnawed at him, but beneath that frustration lay a newfound determination. He had laid bare his vision, revealing the possibility of growth through community engagement. But despite his efforts, familiar emotions from his past crept in, teetering on the edge of doubt. Was I even ready for this? He thought as his steps echoed in the stark hallway, each footfall resonating with the realization that his evolution was merely beginning. In the following days, he found himself in the office, poring over notes from the focus group. The voices of the community echoed in his ears, reminding him why he had embarked on this journey. He needed to pivot his approach, turning his passion into a shield against the suffocating weight of corporate tradition. One particularly quiet afternoon, Jason sat down with Maria. She had been a steadfast presence throughout his tumultuous return to Willow Creek, her insights grounding him when the whirlwind of corporate expectations threatened to overwhelm. As he shared his concerns, she listened intently, her eyes reflecting the wisdom gained from years serving his family. "You have to find your voice, Jason," she urged softly. "Your journey isn't about trying to fit into their mold. It's about carving out a space where your ideals can resonate." Her words struck a chord deep within him, rippling through the fog of uncertainty that clouded his mind. In that moment, clarity surged forward. He realized the essence of his struggle was not merely about the acceptance of his ideas. It was about establishing his authentic self in a world that had clung tightly to the past. A sense of purpose ignited within him, illuminating the path forward. Jason had to embrace who he was and what he stood for. With renewed vigor, he began drafting a comprehensive outline of his proposal, integrating feedback from both the community and the board, tuning the narrative to highlight potential benefits to stakeholders while simultaneously addressing social responsibility. Instead of prescribing change from the top down, he envisioned a solution that engaged the entire company and community. If he could demonstrate the tangible impact of collaboration, perhaps he could bridge the gap between traditional corporate values and the new ethical compass he sought to champion. Finally, the day of the pilot program presentation arrived. The conference room, once a daunting cavern of skepticism, felt charged with something different this time. Seated around the table were not just the board members, but also a handful of community leaders who had committed to supporting his initiative, their presence lending credibility to his vision. As Jason began, he leaned into his narrative, weaving stories of their shared experiences, recalling both struggles and triumphs. The air was thick with anticipation, and for the first time, he saw glimmers of intrigue lighting the faces around him. His heart raced as he transformed apprehension into momentum. Together, we have the opportunity to create a model for success that redefines not just profit, but purpose, he declared with conviction. By stepping into this partnership, we are not just ensuring our company's longevity, we are enhancing the lives of those who rely on us. When the discussion opened up, the board members posed critical inquiries, but this time, Jason felt equipped. He navigated their concerns with the same empathy he had cultivated during the focus group, addressing each criticism thoughtfully. Their doubts were no longer adversarial, but rather an invitation to foster deeper dialogue. As the meeting progressed, Jason found himself enveloped in a sense of belonging he had never felt before. The dialogue rolled naturally, and the community leaders articulated their hopes and concerns, offering pragmatic insights that enhanced his proposal. A palpable change swept through the room, the atmosphere evolving from skepticism to cautious optimism. It was as if the board members were finally connecting not just with the man standing before them, but with the vision they had all been silently yearning for. As the session wrapped, Jason's heart swelled with pride. The board affirmed the launch of the pilot program, conditioned on refining the specifics based on the collaborative feedback shared that day. The path ahead became clearer, aligning with the values he believed in and the community he intended to empower. After the meeting, words of congratulations and support flowed in. It was in those moments, enveloped by the resolute smiles of community leaders and the hesitant nods of board members, that Jason achieved something monumentally significant. He began to see himself not just as the heir to a legacy, but as a leader in his own right, a beacon of transformation for the company he aimed to redefine. On his way back to his office, Jason felt a buoyant lightness, a sense of possibility igniting within him. He had faced his fears, embraced the tumult of uncertainty, and transformed them into the groundwork of a legacy he could own, one where integrity and forward thinking coexisted. His accomplishments over these past weeks had cultivated not only strategic growth, but personal development, a realization of who he was and what he could achieve. When he finally glimpsed his reflection in the glass of his office, he saw not just a man burdened by legacy, but a leader fueled by his purpose, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. And amid that burgeoning confidence, Jason made a pledge, not just to the board, but to himself. This was his journey. He would continue to fight for authenticity and ethics over expedience, standing up for those whose voices needed to be heard, ensuring that the changes he sought would enlighten both the company and the community as he carved his own path forward. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial for us. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait. Even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of supporting our journey.